Level 1. The Lookout. A prepaid phone sits in your lap. Your eyes are on the street. That is the entire job. You are 12, maybe younger. Researchers studying the Medellin cartel have documented a deliberate pattern. The organization recruited the disenfranchised youth of the city's poorest barrios as its lowest tier, long before any of them touched a weapon. You are one of them. Not chosen for skill, chosen because you are cheap, replaceable, and hungry enough to sit on a curb for 6 hours without asking why. The corner you watch has a name in the trade: Campañero, bell ringer. Your entire value to the organization is the sound you make when something goes wrong. The rule is simple: watch the corner. If a uniform turns onto the street, you call. You don't ask what's inside the house behind you. You don't ask whose money moves through it. Curiosity was never part of the job description. The pay is small, a few thousand pesos, enough for food, maybe shoes that fit. Enough that when a cousin comes to you with a second job, you don't think to say no. The heat here sits on your shoulders like a hand. Dust, motorbikes, the smell of frying oil from a stall 2 doors down. Nothing about this street looks like the empire it quietly serves. Somewhere behind that door is money that could buy the whole block. Out here, all you have is the phone, and the corner, and the waiting. Most boys who take this job never rise past it. A few do. Nobody tells you in advance which kind you'll be. You just keep showing up until someone decides for you. You have never met Pablo Escobar. You never will. To you, he is a name passed down through 3 or 4 people, the way weather gets passed down. Something that shapes your day without ever standing in front of you. What you don't know yet is how far this ladder climbs. You don't know that somewhere above you, grown men are paid to stand exactly where you are standing now. Except the corner they watch is a doorway, and the man walking through it is the one whose name you've only heard second-hand. You don't know that, at its peak, an estimated 500 armed men will stand between that man and the world. You don't know that on one December morning, years from now, the number will drop to 1. For now, you are a phone, a curb, and a rule. Watch. Don't ask. That rule will follow you up every level of this system. It will just get more expensive to keep. Level 2. The Recruit Guard. The call doesn't come from Escobar. It never will. It comes from an uncle, a cousin, a man your father trusts. That is how you get in. The cartel didn't advertise. It recruited through blood. Cousins, in-laws, childhood friends from the same 3 blocks. Loyalty here isn't sworn on anything. It's inherited, the way a house or a debt is inherited, whether you asked for it or not. Your first post has no gun in it. You watch a safe house from a plastic chair in the shade, logging who comes and goes in a notebook nobody will ever read twice. Cars arrive at odd hours. Men you don't recognize carry duffel bags that clink or don't clink, and you learn not to guess which. Some days the job is nothing but errands, carrying a message 3 blocks over, waiting outside while someone's wife shops for groceries with money that didn't come from any job she'd admit to. You clean weapons that have never been fired, because a clean weapon that never fires is still cheaper than a dirty one that does. The work is boring in a way that feels dangerous, like the silence before a door opens. Hours pass, then a car door slams somewhere, and every muscle in your body remembers, for a second, that this isn't actually a quiet job. They tell you almost nothing. Not the amounts, not the names. You learn the organization the way you'd learn a river, by which parts you're allowed to touch, and which parts will pull you under if you try. You start to notice the pattern. Everyone above you got here the same way you did. A relative vouched, a name from the same neighborhood. Nobody is hired off the street for the positions that matter. Trust here isn't built. It's assumed at birth, and tested later, usually when it's already too late to refuse. You also notice what happens when someone doesn't come home. There's no funeral announcement, no explanation passed down the chain. Just an envelope, quietly delivered to a mother or a wife, and a silence that everyone understands not to break. You tell yourself this is temporary, a favor to family, nothing more. But the men who trained you said the same thing 5 years ago, and they are still here, still answering calls from other men's uncles, still logging cars in notebooks nobody reads. Loyalty here isn't sworn, it's inherited. What you don't yet understand is what it will cost you to keep it. Level 3. Perimeter Sentry. A cash envelope changes hands outside a ranch gate. It moves the way a paycheck would. Counted, folded, unremarkable. Except this envelope is payment for a dead policeman. At the height of the war against the state, the cartel is reported to have placed bounties on any officer killed. 1 to 5 million pesos, roughly $5,000 to $25,000 today. Violence, run like a payroll department. A price list, not a passion. Now you carry a weapon. You stand at the edge of a ranch or a stash house, armed, watching a tree line instead of a street corner. The danger is real now, not theoretical. You've heard the stories. A checkpoint that went wrong, a rival crew that got too close, a man from 2 ranches over who simply stopped showing up. Nobody explained what happened to him. Nobody asked. You are not asked to kill anyone yet. You are asked to be ready to. There's a difference, and you tell yourself it matters. Some nights, standing in the dark with the tree line in front of you, hand resting on a weapon you've never used, you're not sure it does. The men who bring the envelopes never explain where the money comes from. They don't have to. Everyone here already understands the arithmetic. A policeman's life has a number attached to it, and that number is smaller than what the cartel spends protecting a single shipment moving through the mountains behind you. Boys who started as lookouts sometimes end up standing exactly where you're standing now, a few years and a few favors later. You recognize a couple of the faces. They don't talk about the corners they used to watch. Nobody here talks about the version of themselves that came before this one. It's understood that the person you were at level 1 doesn't get mentioned at level 3. Not out of shame, exactly. Just habit. The way you don't discuss a language you no longer speak. At night, the radios crackle with updates from other perimeters. Other men like you, doing the same job in other parts of the city, other ranches, other roads. The network hums, constant, low, always listening for the call that means something has gone wrong somewhere else tonight, and might be your turn next. Killing a policeman here has a price list. What it doesn't have, yet, is your name on it. Level 4. The Junior Escort. A justice minister named Rodrigo Lara Bonilla is shot dead by cartel gunmen on a motorcycle, gunned down in his own car on a Bogota street. He had spent his final months pushing for one thing above all else: extraditing men like Escobar to face trial in the United States, out of reach of Colombian money and Colombian judges. By morning, every guard in the organization has more work. The assassination triggers a state crackdown unlike anything before it, and the men who protect Escobar's operation are forced to scale up overnight. You are pulled from perimeter duty and put on escort, riding with a lieutenant or beside a car carrying more cash than you'll earn in a decade of standing at gates. The work is different now. You're not watching for a policeman anymore. You're watching for an ambush. The radio in the car never goes silent. Check-ins every few minutes. Code words for routes, code words for trouble. A rhythm you learn the way you once learned the sound of the motorbike turning onto your old street. You start to understand the shape of the thing you're part of. Somewhere above you, men are managing hundreds of people like you, coordinating movement across a city that is now actively hunting the man at the top of this chain. Somewhere further above that, decisions are being made about who lives and who is expendable enough to lose. And you have no idea yet which column your name sits in. The danger has a texture now. The tightness in a driver's shoulders before a blind turn. The way conversation stops dead at checkpoints. The specific silence of 4 men in a car who have all just noticed the same unfamiliar vehicle behind them for 2 blocks running. Every escort now ends the same way it begins. A head count, a radio call confirming everyone made it back. A small relief nobody says out loud. You've been paid more. You've also started flinching at parked cars, at motorcycles slowing near an intersection, at anyone who looks at the vehicle a second too long. The fear doesn't leave when the shift ends. It just waits for the next one. You don't ask what would happen if the ambush came while you were the one in the vehicle. You already know the answer isn't a promotion. The state just declared war. War means the radios never go quiet again. Level 5. The convoy security. A call comes through in the middle of the night. A warning about a flight scheduled to leave Bogotá the next morning. In 1989, a bomb is placed aboard Avianca Flight 203 in an attempt to kill one suspected informant. Over 100 people aboard the plane die. The informant isn't even on it. You are not on that plane, but you are part of the same machine that decided it was worth doing. You ride now with the convoys, cars moving Escobar's family, his cash, his most trusted people. Between properties that stretch from city apartments to a private ranch, a place stocked with animals no one in this country had ever owned before him. Giraffes, ostriches, hippos shipped in from another continent, grazing behind fences you help guard on rotation. 100 strangers die so that one man who might talk never gets the chance. This is the arithmetic you're now expected to accept without comment. Not celebrate, not question. Just carry, the way you carry a weapon, as part of the job, until the weight of it stops registering the way it used to. The convoys move fast, through back roads, changing routes without warning, sometimes twice in the same trip. You've learned to read the driver's hands on the wheel, the way you once read a street corner for a uniform. Tension has become your permanent weather, something you carry into every room, whether the room needs it or not. Riding past the private zoo at dusk, you sometimes catch yourself thinking the same thing. None of this, the animals, the routes, the money, was ever meant to make sense to someone standing where you stand. It was only ever meant to be protected. You are not paid to understand the empire. You are paid to keep it moving safely from one gate to the next. You tell yourself the target is never you. You are, after all, protecting the family, the cargo, the people who matter to the man at the center of it all. You are not the informant on the plane. You are the convoy around the people he loves. 100 strangers die, so one informant stays silent. This is the scale you now protect. Level 6, the Handpicked Guard. The watchtowers were built to his exact blueprint. Every man who mans them was chosen by him personally, including you. In 1991, Escobar surrenders and enters La Catedral, a prison he designed himself, on a mountainside overlooking the city he ran. According to multiple historical accounts, it comes with a soccer field, a bar, a discotheque, and comforts no ordinary inmate has ever been granted. He handpicked the guards who would watch over him inside it. You are one of the chosen. On paper, this is a prison. In practice, it has better views than most hotels. The man inside it comes and goes as he pleases, receiving visitors, running his business by phone from a room built for a man who was never meant to be confined by it. Your shift here means guarding a gate that exists mostly for appearances, watching a road that officials rarely bother to check. Colombia's chief of state security at the time, Miguel Maza, is on record describing Escobar as a man consumed by paranoia and delusions of grandeur, even at the height of his power. You start to see what he meant. Inside these walls, the boss who owns you also owns the fiction of his own captivity. And the guards who are supposed to represent the state answer, in every practical sense, to him instead. You spend long stretches of your shift doing very little. The strangeness of that, being paid to guard a man from a world he can leave whenever he wants, settles into you slowly. Like heat settling into a room with the windows shut. Visitors come and go on his schedule, not the government's. Business calls are placed from a phone nobody outside these walls is supposed to know exists. It should feel safe here. It doesn't. The calm is too complete, the walls too comfortable, the arrangement too convenient to trust. You've learned enough by now to know that comfort inside this system is never free. It's rented. The bill always comes due, eventually, usually without warning, and rarely to the person who expects it. On paper, he is a prisoner. In practice, you answer to no one else. That difference will matter more than you think. Level 7. The Personal Bodyguard. The day I looked in Pablo Escobar's eyes, I knew there and then I would die for him if need be. That, according to his own account, is how one of Escobar's closest men, known by the alias Popeye, described the moment loyalty stopped being a job and became something closer to faith. Popeye's path here, by his own telling, started almost by accident. Hired first to guard one of Escobar's mistresses, then kept on personally once Escobar noticed something in him worth trusting. He would later describe Escobar as a quiet man, a friend, something close to a father figure. You arrive by a different road, but you end up standing in the same place. Close. Not radio close. Arm's length close. You eat where he eats. You sleep near where he sleeps. Your job has no job description anymore. It is simply to be between him and whatever comes next, whoever walks through whichever door you happen to be standing beside, at whatever hour he decides to move. Popeye said something else, too. That in all his years beside Escobar, he was never once threatened. Not once. The loyalty wasn't extracted, it was given. Freely, completely. The way people give things away when they've stopped weighing the cost of giving them. You understand this now, standing where you stand. Nobody had to force your hand onto the trigger you'd pull for him. You decided that a long time ago, somewhere between the envelope of cash and the sound of his voice calling you by name for the first time, like you were someone worth remembering. There are quiet hours in this job, too. Waiting outside a door while he sleeps, watching him play with his children in a courtyard, standing close enough to hear him laugh at something small. It is easy, in those hours, to forget what the job actually requires of you. You start to understand why men like Popeye described this proximity almost tenderly, as though closeness itself were a kind of shelter. Instead of what it actually is, the shortest possible distance to the center of the target. Around you, the empire hums along. Money, movement, the radios that never stop carrying instructions from one man to the next, down through every level you've already climbed to get here. He never once threatened you. He never had to. You'd already decided to die for him before he ever asked. Level 8. The Enforcer-Bodyguard. Two men are brought into La Catedral for what Escobar calls a conversation. Only one version of what happens in that room will ever leave it. Inside the prison, Escobar comes to suspect that two of his own business partners, Moncada and Galliano, have been skimming profits from him. Suspicion, inside this system, doesn't require a trial. According to Popeye's own later confession, the two men are tortured and killed, their bodies burned on Escobar's direct order. The men doing it are the same men who were hired to guard him. You are one of those men now. The uniform hasn't changed. The job description has. Protecting him, you understand now, sometimes means becoming the instrument of whatever he decides justice requires. No appeal, no version of events but his. No one left afterward to argue otherwise. Popeye himself would later confess in court and in his own memoir to nearly 300 killings carried out personally, and to organizing roughly 3,000 more. A single man's body count higher than most small wars produce. You don't reach those numbers. But standing in that building, hearing what you hear, you understand exactly what kind of loyalty was being asked of you all along. How far it was expected to stretch when the accusation was skimmed money instead of an outside enemy. Word of what happened at La Catedral moves quietly through the ranks afterward. Nobody discusses it directly. But something shifts. A new carefulness in how men speak around each other. A new awareness that the line between guarding and executing was never as fixed as it seemed from where you used to stand. Lieutenants who once spoke freely start choosing their words like men aware that a room might remember them. You start watching your own words too. Not because anyone accuses you of anything, because you've just learned exactly what happens to men who are merely suspected. There is no clean way to describe what happens in rooms like that one. There is only the fact that you were in the building, that you heard it, that you said nothing, because saying something was never one of the choices on offer, and everyone here already knew that before you did. You didn't sign up to be an executioner, but loyalty, once it needs proof, as a way of changing the job description without ever telling you first. Level 9. The Commander of Sicarios. The man who commands 500 guns is shot dead in his own apartment, 3 years before his boss. His name, according to historical accounts, was John Jairo Arias Tascon, known as Pininha. Escobar's chief bodyguard and the commander of his Sicarios, a man who rose from the same barrios you once watched a corner in. In June of 1990, police corner him in Medellin, and he dies in the gunfight that follows. The chain of command that once answered only to him is suddenly missing its center, and no one below him is sure who to call. You feel the shift immediately. If he could be found, so can you. A new threat has emerged by now. A vigilante group calling itself Los Pepes, financed by a rival cartel, dedicated to one purpose: destroying everyone connected to Escobar, one name at a time. Guards, drivers, accountants, lawyers. Records show they burned 2 properties belonging to Escobar's own mother and attempted to kill her more than once. They sent a letter bomb to his imprisoned brother that left him blind in one eye. A car bomb, meant for the people around Escobar, left his young daughter partially deaf for the rest of her life. They are not trying to reach Escobar directly. They are removing, piece by piece, everyone standing between him and them, including, eventually, you. Escobar himself is reported to have started sleeping in a different house almost every night by this point, trusting fewer and fewer of the men still standing around him. The paranoia that once seemed like a rumor about him now feels, from where you stand, like simple math. Command didn't protect Penina. It just made him easier to find. The highest-ranking target in a war that had started treating the entire security apparatus as one target, not many separate men with separate lives. Men you trained beside stop answering radios. Some are found. Some simply aren't found at all, which is its own kind of message. The radios that once carried routine instructions to 500 men now carry something else. Warnings, names, confirmations of who isn't answering anymore and how long ago the silence started. Command didn't protect him. It just made him easier to find. Level 10, The Last Man Standing. December 2nd, 1993. A call is placed to a son. Someone else is listening. Colombian surveillance intercepts a phone call from a middle-class neighborhood in Medellin to Escobar's teenage son. Within hours, the search block, the joint police task force that has hunted him for 16 months, with quiet support from American agencies, surrounds the block. He had celebrated his last birthday days earlier, quietly, with his mother and a cousin, in hiding, with none of the 500 men who once stood watch anywhere nearby. Beside him now is the only bodyguard he has left, Álvaro de Jesús Agudelo, known as El Limón. Before this, according to historical accounts, El Limon's job in the organization was driving. He was Escobar's brother's chauffeur, nothing more. He is not the best soldier the cartel ever produced. He is simply the last one still standing. Because everyone more decorated than him is already dead, hunted down one radio call at a time, one address at a time. 500 guns at the peak of this system once stood between one man and the world. Today, there is one, and he used to fetch groceries and drive